Dan Illman, Mike Beer, the second of two graded stakes races scheduled for the turf at Gulfstream Park on Saturday, race number 10. Let's take a look at the field for the Grade 3 Tropical Turf. 1 mile, $100,000 is the purse. Mike, at first glance, you see a lot of pace in this race.
Yeah, there are a ton of horses in here who just feel like they do their best running out in the lead. It almost feels like, and maybe it's just too easy to look at it this way, it feels like something's got to give on the front end.
We know that the 8 A Thread of Blue is very fast. He's made a lot of his money on the lead, but it's hard to imagine him getting the front. And Timeform US agrees with my assessment here when we put up the pace projector. There is no faster horse in this race than the 4 Guidou stretching out. They tried to turn him back a couple of times. He just doesn't have that sprint speed. He has middle distance speed, and I can't imagine John Velasquez taking a hold of this thing.
I can't either. I mean, it is a turf course at Gulfstream where speed has been very good so far this meet. I don't see why anybody wouldn't try and take advantage of it. And I agree with you. I think there's a lot of fast horses in here, but Guidou just might be faster than all of them. He's run some good races, Dan, but overall, I've just sort of gotten tired of this horse. I don't really know how good he actually is.
He's an in and outer. You know, once in a while he'll come up with a big performance, then he'll come up with a couple of stinkers, and then he'll give you a glimpse. It all depends on price with Guidou. Empire of War is 10-1 on the morning line, making his second start for trainer Michael Maker. And if you want to draw a line through his most recent race, you certainly can. It was his first race off of a long layoff. He caught a boggy turf course at the fairgrounds. Second off the bench, he can certainly improve. You just look at his past performances, he just seems slow.
Yeah, I mean, he is so far. I mean, I guess on the upside for him is he only managed 3 starts as a 3-year-old, so he never really had a chance to develop. I guess you could look at him that way. I personally can't say I love any of his turf races, but maybe he just hasn't had a chance to put it all together yet.
The number 2 Maraud is a multiple graded stakes winner, and he likes doing work at Gulfstream Park. He was taken for $80,000 out of a race at Saratoga. They ran him in the Grade 3 Red Bank at Monmouth, and he ran okay. Yeah. We're going to take a look at that race right now. He was prompting the leader from the outside. He has a brief lead in those white blinkers. It takes him a while to change leads, and he just can't finish with the likes of Divisadero. It was a good solid third. The 5th place finisher, Diamond King's a dirt horse, but he came back to earn a 97 on the main track. Maraud has good tactical speed, and I think he can sign to sit in the 2nd or 3rd flight.
Yeah, more than anything else, I think that's what you would like about this horse, that he's sort of adaptable to different scenarios out there on the track. If the pace is slow, he'll sit close like he did in that Red Bank we just looked at. But he's won graded stakes races from way off the pace. You go back to him as a 3-year-old, and that American turf, I mean, that pace just totally fell apart, and he came and ran it down. So he can do it that way as well. I think that's what you like most about this horse. He's very consistent, and he's very adaptable to different scenarios.
He's 9-2 on the morning line. I have a feeling he's going to drift a little bit off of that price. Now, he was listed as a vet scratch on October the 25th, and it took him about a month to get back to the work tab. Those 3 workouts, though, should have him fit, especially the Bullet at Gulf.
Yeah, true enough. Good a trainer change here to Joe Orsino, see how it all plays out.
Let's take a look at a formulator fact for Joe Orsino concerning Maraud. Over the past 5 years, with horses aged 4 and up on turf, off a trainer switch, 25% winners and a positive return on investment. The 3 is Big Agenda, and Big Agenda goes out for an underrated barn that does well with turf horses, and Big Agenda's slowly started learning how to win races after beginning his career with a bad case of seconditis. That being said, he's going to have to deal with a layoff and a big hike in class. This horse was running for 40 in New York back in 2018.
I mean, he's stepping way up here. On the positive side, I like, if nothing else, I like what the new connections did with him when they took over early last year, and that just, for a horse who just wouldn't pass horses late, they just put him right up on the pace, and he won his first 2 starts for them. And then last time, he was able to close down a race at Colonial. I mean, it was such a weak field. This is a huge step up in class, and he has to do it off the layoff.
We briefly touched upon Guidou, and I think you could look at Guidou and say he's a little dirtied up. He doesn't want to sprint, so throw out the race 1 and 3 back. He didn't break in the Artie Schiller, couldn't take up his customary spot on the lead in that race. And then the 4-star Dave and the Forbidden Apple, they just sent him out there once on a yielding turf course. Can John Velasquez get this horse to settle? Because it's great when you're on the lead and have an easy, uncontested lead. It's not great when the horse is completely hard to handle. And at times, Guidou is very hard to settle on the lead.
He gets very headstrong in his races. He doesn't really want to rate the pace. He just wants to go fast early. I don't know what to say about him, Dan. He just, to me, hasn't turned out to be that good. Maybe he'll just speed pop his field, and that will be all she wrote. But and I also hear what you're saying about the sprint races. Like, maybe he doesn't want to sprint, but is that really an excuse for his last race? I mean, he made the lead in that race, so they did not go fast in there. I get it. Listen, I get it. Fully Vested's a better horse than he is. but he was terrible last time.
I've always tried to make Gunnison a good horse. Going back to 2018, I thought he showed some promise in that allowance race at Laurel, some promise in that race in the Tail of the Cat. But when they've stepped him up in class, it just hasn't worked out. Last time out, he ran against Gemintier, and we have a video for that race. Gemintier just controlled the pace up front, and Gunnison, first time off a long layoff, up against it from a pace standpoint, is going to rally for third. I think this was a really useful prep for Gunnison. I'm not sure he's good enough to win a race like this, but I think he can take a step forward and maybe crack the number and a price.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with all that stuff. I mean, I couldn't really talk myself into him on top in this race, but I could certainly see him coming with a late run here and picking up some pieces, because last time he never looked like he was going to win either, but he never had a fair chance last time.
Trainer Safi Joseph has just been on absolute fire at this Gulfstream meet. He claimed Tusk for $32,000 off Jorge Navarro 2 starts back, with the Claiming Crown Emerald in mind, and I don't think the horse ran badly. We're going to take a look at that race. He was in behind horses turning into the stretch. He's in those blue silks. By the time he gets optimum clearance, this horse in front's going to get away from him. I was a little disappointed that he didn't finish it off and finish second, but it was a useful performance, and he's now run 91 buyers in his last 2.
Probably got held up at a pretty crucial point there in that race. I'm with you that, he didn't really seem to finish with any kind of flourish there, but he was held up at a crucial point at the top of the stretch. We'll see. He's been a rock-solid horse for a long time. I remember him, back in New York from a long time ago. I never thought he was a stakes kind of horse, but maybe he is now.
Gemintier's always had a lot of ability. He's won his last 2 races now sprinting. One sprint, one going 7.5 at Gulf. We'll treat that 2-turn race like a rout. But he had everything his own way in the Gunnison race. It makes me think I'd rather have Gunnison coming out of that race. And then when you look at his preferred running style, he likes to be up front, and there's just no way he's outfooting Guidou or even a Thread of Blue, I think, to get the lead.
Yeah, he really does feel like a horse who just almost has to be compromised by the way this race is run, because there's just too much pace for him. The race at Saratoga that sort of started off as good run 3-back, I mean, he basically walked down the lead in there, and he still got run down by a Chad Brown horse. Last time, I don't want to take anything away from him for winning that race, but he was just in control with that phony Frostmorn sitting up there with him on the pace, who wound up finishing 4th. I don't know.
He got projected, Chase.
Yeah, and it feels just like a totally different scenario here.
But the Connections have done a great job
they really
picking
have
their spots with Gemintier, and they'll step him back up into the stakes ranks here. As for a Thread of Blue, I think it's fair to say he's the most talented horse in this race. He's certainly the most accomplished, winning the $1 million Saratoga Derby 3 starts back. He likes to go to the front and show the field his heels, as he did in the Hill Prince last time out, going 1 1/8. Now, this was a cutback in distance for him. He got an easy lead. He's got to beat Neptune Storm, in my opinion. No disrespect to Neptune Storm, who was a very nice horse, but who went back to Southern California and just chased Mo Forza a few times in vain. This was a good effort for a Thread of Blue. I wonder if this race kind of signaled to Kieran he needs a break. He'd been running hard all spring and summer long, and Kieran gave him a break. I just wonder if a mile's a little sharp for him.
I mean, we'll see what happens. I'm not way against him in here.
Oh, no.
It's at least worth pointing out that he is a graded stakes winner at Gulfstream without the lead. He was able to track a pace that day and win the Palm Beach early last year. Maybe he can do it again in this race. I wouldn't take him at a short price in here. Just the way the race projects the setup, and it might be too much for him, but I don't really have any knocks on him. He's a nice horse.
But if he's ready and Guidou doesn't run off early, he might be sitting in a prime position, a la that Palm Beach. And again, he's the most accomplished horse in the race. We'll see if Kieran's got him completely cranked off of the layoff. Now, if you believe this pace is really going to come back for the closers, you got to respect the number 9, Exulting, a horse that was in pretty tough last time out in the Grade 2 Fort Lauderdale, Admission Office, Instilled Regard, Channel Cat. They're solid horses. We'll turn into the stretch here, and Exulting's in behind horses. He's in the green hat turning into the stretch, and he really never gets clear. He wouldn't have won, I don't think, if he got a clean trip, but he's trying. He just doesn't really get that clear path where I think we could see his best. He finished with a little bit of interest, and you know what you're going to get with Exulting. He's a horse that runs buyers in the low 90s with a good pace situation against this kind of field, catching horses off layoffs in a race with a lot of pace. I think it's 6-1 he fits. Something tells me he gets bet down from that 6-1.
I mean, we'll see what happens. I wouldn't argue with him at around 6-1 either. I still wonder if he's as good on turf as he is on dirt, because I think he's actually pretty good on dirt.
He's never won on turf.
The other thing about that last race we just watched, and I agree with you that he ran fine in there against a much better field than this one. That's 1 1/8. He really doesn't want to go that far. I think shorter is better for him. I just wish I liked his race 2 back a little more, Dan. That race at Churchill didn't really do a lot for me. I didn't really see a big excuse for him that day. I didn't really love the way he finished. I wonder if he's as good on turf as he is on dirt.
That's certainly a fair point. And again, let the tote be your guide. 6-1 is fair. 7-2 is not. The 10 is Sand Dancer, and Sand Dancer is a horse that occasionally will show up in these major graded stakes races. Yep. Unfortunately, when he does, it's when he controls the pace, like he did in the 2018 Hill Prince, when they really didn't show him a lot of respect, and they let him go up to the front at 23-1, and he almost pulled off a big upset. His preferred style is going to the lead. From this post, against this field full of speedballs, I just don't see it. He was listed as a vet scratch on December the 11th, but Tim Hills has given him 2 workouts.
I mean, he's a really solid horse. I don't know if he's good enough to beat this field, especially with the way the pace projects to shake out, because I agree with you, he wants to be forward. That's when his best races are. But listen, he's going to be a big price in here. And it's not like, you know, he'd be a total shocker if he won.
And against Vici last time out, a nice solid sprinter who came back to run second in that Aqueduct Turf sprint with an 83 Beyer speed figure. Really an intriguing race.
Yeah,
I think we respect the Thread of Blue. I think we think he's the horse to beat, but off the layoff at a short price, we'll try to find alternatives. We take a look at our top picks. I'm going to go with Exulting, hoping that he can get that first win on the turf, courtesy of a fast pace and cutting back in distance. You like Maraud, who should work something out down towards the inside. I think sort of working on a mid-pack ground-saving trip, and then it's up to Paco Lopez to do the rest.
Listen, I thought he could get the right trip in this race, and I agreed with you. I sort of felt like he might drift off that morning line. I wouldn't take a short price on this horse. Yeah, that's what I thought. I think he might drift a little bit, and if he's, you know, in that middling, you know, 6, 7, 8-1 range, this is a horse I could take a shot with in here.
2-9-8-5 for Mike. I'll take a shot with Exulting. 9-8-2-6 for me in the Grade 3 Tropical Turf at Gulfstream Park. It's race number 10 with an approximate post of 4:38 Eastern. Good luck.